Hi everyone, welcome to yet another episode of Conversations with EQMint. Today we are talking about something that we all get impacted by daily, but we rarely think about it. It is the scrap supply chain. India produces millions and tons of recyclable waste every year. Yet most of it travels through completely unorganized networks. So how do we fix that? And how can technology, data, and ESG framework bring order to this chaos? To help us understand this better, today we have with us Ms. Ankita Chatterjee from Race EcoChain Limited, a company that's literally racing ahead to make sustainability smarter and more measurable. Welcome to the show, Ms. Ankita.
Thank you so much for having me, Rashi, and I really truly appreciate the opportunity to share my thoughts on this platform. By EQMint, I've been hearing a lot about EQMint of late, and I really wanted to engage myself with you, with this meaningful discussion around the sectors, the challenges that we have, the opportunities that we have, and how can actually we build a more sustainable ecosystem. Absolutely. You're absolutely right. India's scrap supply chain is still, majority of it is absolutely very unorganized. In fact, it operates very informally. So we have a lot of thousands of small collectors, dealers, and recyclers. Everybody is working in silos with no digital records, no pricing transparency, and often there is no traceability of where the waste ends up, and that is that has been one of the biggest challenges that we have been seeing for the last 2-3 years since I've come here and started working in this industry. So, but at Race EcoChain, we see this not as a challenge but as a massive opportunity to bring a structured data and accountability to an industry that it desperately needs.
So, what are the main reasons behind this lack of structure?
Digital adoption in the sector is very low, which I just spoke a second back. Many dealers, they're still using cash transactions and still are into physical ledgers, and it doesn't leave any room for traceability, because that is difficult. Then that actually makes anybody difficult for us to trace how things are happening. The network itself is very fragmented. The suppliers, the transporters, the recyclers, I did mention that they're operating in silos, and there is no data sharing happening. All these are one of the challenges. And lastly, the compliance pressure has also recently started to build. Until now, there were few businesses which were held accountable for how to dispose of their waste or whether it's being processed responsibly or not. So all these things, the result of all this is that the tons of recyclables never reach the right recyclable channels, and at the end what happens is we actually end up losing both value and environmental opportunity. So it's basically a double setback for the economy and the planet.
That's true. I mean, it's ironic, right? We talk about sustainability every day, but the actual system behind it is so informal. So when a supply chain remains unorganized, what are the ripple effects?
The impacts are very layered and it's very widespread. So first, obviously, there is a value loss. The recyclable material which could otherwise re-enter production cycles, or they end up going to landfills, causing both financial and environmental damage. That is one of the things. The second is the human aspect. The informal sector, the workers often operate in a very unsafe environment, Rashi. Without any fair pay, healthcare issues are there, basic recognition for the crucial role they play in a circular economy. So that is something that really needs to be taken care of, and somewhere that has been neglected, And from the environmental standpoint, it kind of translates into a very higher carbon emission and inefficient resource utilization.
So we are not just losing out on recyclables, but we're also losing out on accountability in this case, right?
Absolutely, right? Exactly. Unorganized supply chain, doesn't hurt profits. It actually is it's actually hurting the planet. So if you really look at it, yes, that's one of the major issues.
Okay, now let's talk about something that's become a bit of a buzzword these days, which is ESG. What does an ESG supply chain really mean in this context?
So this is actually a very important question and very interesting, because I have been quite involved myself into ESG, and I would really like to talk a little more about the whole thing. So basically, when we talk about ESG, Rashi, it basically aligns the supply chain, which is environmental, social, and governance, and it talks about all about transparency and responsibility. So, which means in the supply chain world, that means every movement of material is tracked, from where the waste is generated, from where it is processed and recycled. And we are essentially talking about integrating accountability and transparency into every single operation actually. When I talk about environmental, so I'll just go a bit slow, and I want to talk about environment, about social, and the governance pillar of it as well. So when I talk about environmental perspective, which means we are able to measure the carbon footprints of every movement that we are making, ensuring that waste is processed responsibly, and we are able to minimize the emissions through smarter logistics and certified recycling. And RAISE as an organization is definitely working towards reaching that goal as well. And we are hopeful that we should be able to reach that bit as well. Might take some time, but yes, we do have that horizon to be working on that. On the social side, it's about recognizing and uplifting the informal workforce, which I did mention that there is a lot of the percentage is very high in terms of informal workforce in this sector. Giving them fair wages, safe working conditions, and dignity to deserve basically. So creating a socially inclusive ecosystem is essential and truly circular. To building a truly circular economy. And beyond the issues of fair pay, child labor remains a serious concern, because if you personally ask me, I've been visiting a few suppliers myself in my area, and I actually have seen that there are places where there are children who are actually working. So maybe they're not forcing, but then yes, they do work, and I've actually gone ahead and asked them that, okay, why are you making your children work in this kind of an environment? But then that is something that we have to look into and see what best can we do for them, right? So this definitely falls under the social pillar of ESG, and at RAISE we aim to address this challenge by promoting sourcing and building responsible and ESG compliant value chain as well. And the last pillar that I talk about is the governance pillar, where companies are expected to ensure compliance with environmental regulations. So there is a word which people are aware of it, and people are aware of it, but I would not mind repeating it, which is called the extended producer responsibility norms. Basically, it's an ethical sourcing practices. So it's all about ensuring that every recycling waste can be traced back into verifiable digital documentation. So EPR in India is basically making producers, importers, and brand owners accountable for collecting and recycling and disposing the waste throughout. So it's basically a product life cycle, if you talk about it in a nutshell. Companies are required to use traceable systems, integrated recycling content, and maintain a transparent reporting to regulators. And somewhere this shift is kind of fostering sustainable sourcing, I believe. Now, to add to it, since I mentioned, I would like to talk a little more about the thing. RAISE EcoChain here is, helping the supply chain partners and the waste collectors to meet these EPR and ESG standards by promoting ethical sourcing and traceability. Yes. So basically, it means that when a company claims that its waste was responsibly recycled, there's actually data to validate that claim.
It's not just recycling, but it's recycling responsibly, right?
And there is some more to it, Rashi, that I would want to add to it is that we have actually realized that how crucial ESG would become in shaping a responsible business. So in the year 2023, we as organized as RAISE EcoChain, we proactively undertook our first ESG rating to understand our position and identify areas of growth. So it was it was a very new thing to me to get into ESG, but later on when we started and I started working on it, I think this was one of the very intelligent decision of our management to be making that we should be getting into ESG and working towards it. And and I just want to make it a little simple for the audience also to understand that that in India there is a disclosure format which is called a BRSR disclosure format, which is mandatory for it is mandatory for the first top 1,000 companies to basically disclose it to the SEBI. It has to be aligned with the SEBI guidelines. Now the thing is that and again, since it's only mandatory for top 1,000 companies to by market capitalization, so this BRSR circular requires those 1,000 listed companies to ensure that at least 75% of their supply chain is ESG compliant. So you have to understand that it was not mandatory for our organization to do it, but we as RACE did this voluntarily disclosure in BRSR report since 2023, when this had just come into picture. And because we ourselves voluntarily wanted to understand where our ESG performance under those 9 principles, where do we fall, and so that we could work towards how we could make these pillars and the BRSR report even better year on year. So just to add to a little thing to it, in the waste management context, like we have just had a joint venture with Ganesha Ecosphere. We had a joint venture with them. Ganesha Ecosphere is actually already following ESG standards, but at the same time, their scrap suppliers must also align with these practices, and this is the reason why we would want. That is the reason why RACE has been actively, been working on the same model to build that ESG compliant supply chain that supports this transition. So I don't know if the audience would really be understanding, because there's a lot that I'm talking, which is ESG, which is BRSR. But yes, everything is in line. I mean, everything is all interconnected. And as the framework evolves, we hope to have more such companies like Ganesha Ecosphere achieving full ESG compliance in the near future. And that is how we and my team, at least, we are working towards achieving that horizon and that goal, basically, right?
Okay, that's wonderful, Ankita. So now that we're talking about recycling responsibly, can you give me more insight on how RACE EcoChain itself is solving this?
So when I talk about RACE, it connects all the players in the recycling ecosystem. So we call it as waste generators, we call it scrap dealers, aggregators, and manufacturers as well. So for this, we have actually created a digital platform that ensures every transaction and movement is recorded, verified, and traceable, which I mentioned about in the first, set of conversations we started having. So it's like giving the scrap supply chain in system where data flows and everyone is connected. So it's no longer manually managing sustainability. It's about making it measurable. So that is the objective that we've always had.
I like that analogy that you've given, a nervous system for recycling.
Absolutely, and we've integrated features like ESG compliance data, carbon footprint tracking, and digital invoicing. So companies can prove their sustainability claims and not just talk about them actually.
That's wonderful. Okay, now let's look a little ahead. Can you tell me where RACE is headed next?
So, Rashi, we are building towards a data-led global ESG ecosystem, and the goal majorly is to integrate India's e-care policies, support the government compliance, and eventually make RACE a benchmark for organized recycling globally. So, over the next few years, we aim to expand RACE's technology beyond borders and enabling, we want to enable global brands and recyclers to trace circular movements of material on a unified platform. And our long-term vision is simple. I mean, make sustainable, profitable, transparent, and scalable. Because only then I believe the recycling truly becomes a second nature.
So basically, RACE isn't just solving for today, but it's designing for tomorrow as well.
Yes, absolutely, and we really believe that sustainability should be profitable, scalable, and transparent, and that's the only way it's going to be. We'll be able to make a future ready. And I also generally believe that the data, and when data, technology, and purpose comes together, sustainability becomes a collective movement, and it's not just a corporate matrix. So you think beyond what people really perceive. So that's what our objective and motive is as an organization.
Beautifully said, Ankita. I think what Race EcoChain is doing is more than just tech, it's transformation. To everyone listening, if you want to be a part of a smarter, greener future, check out Race EcoChain and the Race app. Start making sustainability measurable. Thank you, Ankita, for joining us and giving us this insightful conversation about the in-depth and giving us an in-depth knowledge about the recycling industry. It was lovely to have you on board today.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much for actually giving me an opportunity to come on this podcast. And it's been really a pleasure talking about Race, helping shape a cleaner, more accountable future for recycling. And we'll be more happy, to have more people joining this journey towards a smarter circular tomorrow. So that is something that we all of us should be aiming together to achieve it.
Lovely. All right, everybody. Thank you, listeners, for being with us today in our conversation. Until next time, stay circular, stay sustainable. Thank you.